Shalom, family, most high in Christ bless. This is Sister Zamira from the House of Soldier Othaniel. I'm going to be doing a quick Photoshop tutorial. This one is going to be focused on backgrounds, doing some gradients, adding brushes to your Photoshop images. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I am going to go ahead and click on Create New. If you're new to Photoshop, you won't already have these dimensions set up for the most part. I believe you will have to manually type it in. So I'm starting with 1080 by 1080, which is your typical dimension for like Instagram, Facebook posts. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on create. And now we have our little black box. Before I get started with any of my images, I always do Command plus. That is for me to zoom in. I find that when I'm zoomed in on my images, I feel like I have more space and I'm better able to place fonts and like different images onto my canvas pretty much. So to go ahead and get started, we are going to be adding gradients to this to create your own backgrounds. So before I get started, I always do add another layer just in case I want to like hide one layer and see how another layer would look on top of it or something like that. If I want to switch things around, I have the ability to just hide something rather than deleting it and then having to recreate it if I change my mind and want to end up using it. So over here on my toolbar, I'm going to go ahead and click on the gradient tool. If you're new to Photoshop, it may already be set to paint bucket tool, which is this little paint bucket with the paint dripping. If so, you're just gonna right click it and then select gradient tool. So up at the top is where you can see what color your gradient will actually be. If you go ahead and click on it, you'll be able to adjust the colors. And to do that, you just click on the little boxes at the bottom and you can change it to whatever color that you would like for it to be. You can do blue and black, blue and white. Probably for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to do blue and black. I'm going to try to mimic, try to do it as though I was doing like a Twitter ad, like follow us on Twitter or something like that. If you wanted it to be more than two colors, you can do that. You would just click on the middle. It'll create another box and you can make that like a darker blue or something like that. I actually like how that looks, so I'm going to keep it right there. But if you didn't want that, you could just click delete. Also, with the gradients, Photoshop has them color coordinated. These folders are preset into Photoshop. So if you wanted to try other colors and not necessarily create one yourself, you can go here and do that. But I'm going to leave mine right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Now, in order to add the gradient, you just drag your cursor as far or as short as you want, and it'll show up differently. To undo them, you can either press Command Z or go up to the top and just click Edit and Undo. I'm only speaking from Apple, so I don't know what the shortcut is for Windows computer, but for undoing something, it's Command Z. At the top, these are little squares to where you can change the style of the gradient that you're doing. So you have this one, which is the circle. You have this other little quirky one. I don't even know what that one's called. But again, if I barely move my cursor, you'll see how the gradient looks different versus if I move it all the way across the template or the background, whatever you want to call it. So these are all of the different types of gradients that you guys can do. But I'm going to go to the circle one, and I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to try to drag that out a little further. It's not. It's not doing what I want it to do, but you guys get the point. Okay, there it is. That's what I wanted. So I'm going to leave it right here. This is how you can just spice up your background, add multiple colors, and or you can go somewhere and look for a background and add it here. whichever way or whatever way you choose to do it is totally up to you. Usually for my like subscribe ads or follow us, I usually do just come here and create a gradient to get started. So next thing we're going to do is add brushes. And brushes are usually like, if you see IUIC photos, they usually have lightning, smoke, what looks like special effects pretty much. And those are oftentimes brushes that are added to the image. So right here is, you're going to click on the brush tool. Again, if you have not downloaded brushes before, you may only see like these first 2 or 3 folders. All of these additional folders are brushes that I've downloaded online, and I've added them to Photoshop. So as you can see, I have a bunch of brushes, from paint brushes to, or like paint strokes, to grunge, lightning, smoke, you name it, it's there. So to add those brushes, I'm going to go to Safari, and we're just going to go to brusheezy.com. And this is the home page. So you can already see like they have a lot of like spray paint and those type of things. I am going to, I'm trying to think of something that I don't have that's downloaded. Let me see, I could try shapes maybe. I mean, we can just download something random just for the sake of a tutorial. So watercolor shapes. That's what I'm going to do. Click free download. And it should be going directly to your downloads folder. And once it's done, I'm going to go back to Photoshop and make sure that brush is still selected. There's a little tiny arrow at the top. You're going to click on that and then click on settings and click on import brushes. So you can see that the most recent brush that I downloaded is at the top. And now if I scroll down, there it is. So we have the watercolor shape brushes, and we can just test to see how that's going to look. Right now it's really big, so it took up the entire image. I'm going to undo that, and we're just going to scale it down. So usually they start off at about 2,500, which is pretty big. At least for my computer, it shows up really big. So if I were to just scale this down, you can see it's a square, and you just put it right there. Now, obviously, if I'm doing a Twitter ad or something, that would not work. That wouldn't look right. But I did just want to show you guys how to upload brushes. So what I usually use oftentimes is maybe like some smoke or something that does tend to look nice in most cases. So I'm just going to pick smoke, scale it up a little bit. I'm also going to go over here and add another layer. Like I mentioned, I like to switch things out and see how something would look if something else wasn't there, if that makes sense. So like I have that right here. Now I probably wouldn't use that particular one. So let me try to use another brush, maybe grunge. Grunge is one that I do use pretty often. So I'm just gonna undo that. You can always undo, and like if you click somewhere else, it'll place it differently. And then you can also change the color down here. So I'm gonna scale it down a little bit more and just maybe put it right there. Now you can see the little rectangles here. In another video, I'll show you guys how I like erase that and blend those images together. This is the erase tool to where you could do that, but you know, as far as images go, I could get more into detail because this still looks kind of weird like that, but this is just focused on adding the brushes. So on my other layer, for instance, if I wanted to do, I want to switch to white, and then if I want to do lightning, and if I make that smaller, I can see how the lightning looks here versus on the other layer. If I were to add smoke, Let's see if that's the smoke I wanted. If I were to add smoke here, those are two completely different layers. So if I wanted to get rid of one and keep the other, I can do that without having to like delete it and constantly add smoke or lightning or whichever. So hopefully this does help. Of course, you would usually take more time when I'm doing my brushes. Sometimes I don't do brushes until after the fact, after I've put my fonts and things together. So you don't always have to do this right when you start your image, because sometimes based on your font or the direction you go with your creativity, the same brush you started with may not be something you want to use towards the end of the image. So Lord's will, this was helpful to anyone who was watching, and I will do another video on downloading fonts and also blending backgrounds. Shalom.